Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at MedCommsNetworking.com. So information services, resources, activities for people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing and the associated businesses. Give a shout out to the people who are looking to join the business. Look at FirstMedCommsJob.com, where we provide a lot of information, webinar type content, careers guides and so on for people who might want to join us as a medical writer, account manager and so on. Also have a look at NetworkPharma TV. That's there's hundreds now, more than 500 videos on all sorts of matters related to MedComms. So lots and lots to go and have a look at if you've not seen it already. Today we are talking a little bit more to the to sort of the people who want to come into the business with the first MedComms job webinar here. Absolutely delighted to have the guys from Lucid. We're talking aligning individual and company values and so on, and what Lucid are going through. They've been through an exercise to I guess look at this very question and to establish and clarify and publish your values and so on. And so we're here to hear what that process is about. And I'm not going to steal your thunder, but I'm going to hand over to Nigel to kick us off.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Thanks, Peter. So I'm Nigel Horn. I'm Managing Director of Bluedog. We're the global creative and digital team here at Lucid Group. It's worth me pointing out, Bluedog were the first of 4 businesses to have been acquired by Lucid Group over the last 4 years. I think, Peter, you put in the notes just around the sort of growth that we've seen around acquisition and different things going on at Lucid. So just worth me pointing out, we were the first of those 4 businesses. So handing over to Henry. First and best.
Thanks, Nigel.
Not necessarily, yeah.
No, not always. So Henry Litchfield, really grateful to be here today and nice to meet you all. So I'm the head of talent and learning and development at Lucid. I joined last October, so this is a new venture for me, but really excited to have been on this journey with defining our new value set. It's also my first leap into MedComms and a healthcare agency. So previously worked in technology organisations, so it's quite different and new, but I'm loving every minute of it so far. That's a bit about me. I'll pass over to Olivia.
Cool. So my name is Olivia Emirali. I have been with Lucid for coming up to 4.5 years. And my role is I head up our talent acquisition function and our people operations. And so I've definitely over the 4.5 years seen kind of Lucid evolve. And then prior to Lucid, like Henry, very different organizations. Was at Amazon for 8 years, so large American international organization, very different to the world of MedComms. But what we wanted to talk to you today really was around kind of all around our values exercise that we just went through, and kind of why essentially, and kind of what that resulted in and how we feel that's important as individuals to align to in terms of values. So as Nigel said, and it was in the bio too, kind of Lucid Group has grown rapidly over the recent years, and like many organisations, we've experienced the volatility of the pandemic and political instability, all of that going on externally. But at the same time, internally, we've acquired 4 organisations over the past 4 years, Bluedog being the first, Nigel. Some of those organisations have had some of their own values, and Lucid has had its own values as well. But through that kind of, as well as diversifying our capability, we've also diversified our employee pool and kind of all the different kind of elements of what we do as an organisation. So what we wanted to do was kind of take the organisation on a cultural transformation journey and really look at, okay, internally, what do we need now that really underpins the behaviours that we want to guide our work by, how as an organisation we empower people to deliver, and just how we come together. So it was a really important time for us to come together and evolve our values as one organisation. So an organisation that has acquired 4 over recent years, but also an organisation that is international and over 500 people now, so to really kind of help us as we grow. And on the next slide, we kind of pulled out this quote, and this is something that was really important to us, is when we think about values, is thinking about, okay, asking yourself what's important to us, or to us as individuals, us as collective, as a group, and then having the courage to build a life around whatever that may be. And then, so when we thought about our values, and Nigel's going to talk a bit about the process that we did that, we really encourage people to think about what's important to them within the workplace. So handing over to Nigel, who's going to talk through how we went about our kind of value identification.
Thanks, Olivia. So yeah, just touching on sort of what were the design principles behind those sort of group-wide values. This was about our intention and how we wanted to co-create our values, because I think we felt the values aren't just about the outputs, it's the journey that you take as an organisation on how those values are created and actually how you live those values through that process. We had to create those values in an inclusive and collaborative way, for all the obvious reasons. But our first design principle is that our values had to apply externally as well as internally, which meant that they needed to be relevant for the impact we have for clients, patients, and HCPs, as well as applying to our own teams here at Lucid. Our second design principle, our values had to feel authentically Lucid. Values, I think, can sometimes feel or sound quite generic. So we wanted to create values that really spoke to our people in the language that they would use every day. Thirdly, we wanted values that applied to all people, roles, and seniority. This means that they needed to be based on universal principles that people can apply in a meaningful way for them. For example, creativity could look quite different to somebody in my team, on a creative team, than it might do to somebody working in the finance team. But the language still needs to feel applicable and universal to all of us. This is about everybody being accountable for living those values. And lastly, our values needed to be a compass to guide our behaviour. They needed to be directive. They needed to be things that we can resort to and reference when we're not sure what to do, and ultimately help to guide and unite us in the same direction as we at Lucid aim to transform lives. Next slide, please, Henry. So when you're creating group-wide values, the journey that you undertake shows people what it is that you truly believe. So we wanted to design a process that brought the organisation together for meaningful conversations around all things values. So firstly, we held values evolution sessions in which over 100 Lucidians from across the group came together. We knew that we wanted to connect teams and get teams who didn't know each other speaking about values. So we created mixed teams from the UK and the US, where we saw open, quite candid discussion about the challenges we were facing at Lucid, but what we also loved about our roles as well. And the feedback was 100% of participants said that the session gave them a safe space to reflect on their values. There's a nice little quote there, which I'll just read out from somebody part of that process. I appreciated this session for Lucid to activate and work towards realising what they can do to improve the culture versus it belonging in the HR handbook. Lucid is working to talk the talk and walk the walk, which we thought was really lovely. We planned at this stage to then take those outputs from those sessions and curate our values, but we'd uncovered some really lovely insights into the perspectives of our people. There was also a really nice momentum and buzz around the values. So we created another group of people and they were given the outputs from those sessions. Those teams then worked together virtually for a week, for an hour a day. We were already living the values through greater transparency, and it felt like we were doing something different. And it genuinely felt like we were already making a difference through that process. We set up a hacker shop. I hear you ask, what is a hacker shop? Which is a combination of a hackathon and a workshop. Do you see what we did there? Because it was only for an hour a day. Very clever of us. And again, the feedback from those sessions, 100% of those participants said they felt proud to participate in those values hacker shops as well. We then integrated all of the outputs from the three groups into our proposed values, which were named the Core 4, which we'll tell you a little bit more about. It was the hacker shop participants who then validated and acknowledged that these values that we'd come up with did represent them, which meant we also then had an advocacy group for implementing the values across Lucid as well. Next slide, please, Henry. So what's within that Core 4? When creating our group values, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to be innovative, as I've said, but we also recognise that culture change isn't just about the positive, it's about challenging the negative. So we created a set of values and anti-values. The values represent what is important to us at Lucid, and they have example empowering behaviours that show that value in action. These are aspirational and they speak who we want to be. Whereas the anti-values are the opposite to the value, and they're illustrated as our values villains. Boo. They have call out behaviours which are the negative behaviours that we want to challenge, but they are behaviours that we also acknowledge that we all potentially slip into at some point. It wasn't about demonising someone for displaying those anti-values. It's about making it clear what that negative behaviour is, so we can build awareness and have a common language to call out each other when we see those behaviours. We also used, as I've tried to demonstrate, humour and satire when creating the anti-values, so that we can challenge each other in a non-confrontational way, using that humour to create culture change in a way that hopefully brings people together. And now handing over to Olivia, who's just going to tell you a little bit more about the core four.
Yeah. So in terms of our core four, so these are not the anti-values, these are the more positive side. So the core four that we came down to, and I'll dig into each of these a bit more, were compassionately human, accountable allies, invent with intent, and courageously curious. So if we go on to the next slide, I will tell you a bit more about them. So thanks to Nigel's team, Bluedog, and mocking up all of these designs, our first kind of value is compassionately human. And so this one, we previously had a value within the Lucid side that was all about being human-centric, and it was really thinking about the human impact of all of our actions and the decisions and how we communicate. We felt it was really important to make sure that our the ability to transform lives is through kind of having those healthy interactions and putting each other at the forefront. And the flip side to that, so the anti-value is kind of, it's not nice when we slip into being a rigid robot. So not considering our impact of our actions, our words, or decisions on others, and kind of being really obsessed with those insignificant details that we've lost focus on while kind of really whilst not looking at the longer term. So with each of our values, what we've also done is had some aligning behaviours. So we're not going to go through the behaviours of all of our values, but we thought we would just do for this first one here. So the empowering behaviours that we've identified as a collective for this value are really looking at the decisions, making sure they're being made through the lens of ourselves, our clients, our patients, HCPs, each other, really appreciating the journey that each of us goes on and kind of what's going on in everyone's lives, and kind of taking the time out to understand that as well. Really being empathetic and inclusive within our workspace and supporting one another's kind of success, and really empowering that as well. So really putting kind of the human at the forefront, really. And then on the flip side, in terms of behaviours that are call-out behaviours, where we might say, oh, hang on, you've been a bit of a rigid robot there, might be kind of not allowing other ones to speak, or not being appreciative of people's work-life balance, only thinking about one side of view. So there's just a few things that we can kind of say, oh, hang on, I think you might need to be thinking something differently there. So our next value is all around being an accountable ally. So as an organisation, we're really proud that we are the strategic go-to partners for our clients, and we can work with them to create impact. We can build relationships through trust, through collaboration. So still really thinking about the other value there too, about being human, and also holding each other accountable for the work that we do. So some of the behaviours that we might align to that are really kind of doing what we say we'll do, and having that integrity, and really holding each other accountable, leading with trust, respect, having that positive intent. And that's why on the flip side, our anti-value was a selfish, shellfish. Now, there are some tongue twisters within our values, so excuse me there. But this is when perhaps we might slip into allowing our ego to drive our behaviour, really focusing on looking good rather than actually that long-term impact, and only having those transactional relationships, and also operating independently. So a behaviour aligned to that might be kind of not sharing as much information as you could do, or kind of closing down any debate, so we can't get that collaboration. We've even kind of, it's not fully taken on yet, but we have got a hand gesture associated to our selfish, if we need to remind anyone there. And we did have our group president dress up as a crab in a costume when we launched these, which was quite comical for anyone involved. On the next slide, we've got our next value, which was invent with intent. Now, we previously had a value around pioneering, but I think what was important to us as a group this time was really making sure, yes, that invention was there, but also that it's purposeful and meaningful. So consciously generating kind of unique thinking and questioning different ways of doing things, really looking to create transformative solutions for the problems that our clients have, but also kind of questioning them to go beyond that too. Really thinking about how we can work smarter rather than harder. Don't think any of us particularly want to do that, on the harder side anyway, and being conscious of those obstacles as well. So really, when we think about this principle or value, some of the behaviours that align to that are challenging the status quo, not being afraid to fail, and kind of learning from what we do, and we can do things differently next time, and really focusing on that creativity. And the anti-value to that is being a gator brain. Now, this is something that particularly came out of the US team, and it's chomping down on those ideas, and kind of really closing down ideas that come outside of your kind of usual peer group, or they don't align to your thinking, or kind of always considering why things won't work rather than why they might work. So it's kind of having that, oh, but we've tried that before, it wouldn't work mentality, and kind of not challenging yourself to kind of grow or think differently. So we have our little alligator there. And then the last one, another tongue twister, is our courageously curious value, which is, it was really important to us to make sure that we had within our value set how we like to think at Lucid. So we like to challenge ourselves. We like to think disruptively. We like to make sure that we're really thinking differently about the challenges that our clients have and the world around us, and that we are transparent about that. And we like to have the debate to make sure that we get to the ultimate best end goal. But also, by doing that, we kind of have the freedom to do that and encourage everyone to kind of speak freely. So some behaviours we see aligned to this are making space for everyone to have a voice, providing good, kind of constructive feedback to one another, leading with curiosity, recognising that things might change as well. And our secret squirrel here is our anti-value, because sometimes it may be that we slip into kind of being a bit of a secret squirrel, where you only share your true thoughts outside of a group. So you're in a meeting and you might say, yeah, I'm fully on board with that. Actually, you're off Teams on the side going, I'm not sure about this. Actually, we want to encourage people to bring those kind of discussions to the forefront, and have the confidence to do that. So really, kind of we're wanting people to have those, give that feedback and have that conversation, and not get lost in those details there. So those are our core four, each with their own anti-value, and we kind of launched them only a few weeks ago now, with the behaviours there. But Henry is now going to talk to you more about how it's not just about the values, but there's more than that.
Thanks, Olivia. You didn't do the hand gesture for gator brain, which is like the snap down as well, isn't it? I think, I can't remember. Yeah, it's another snap. You did. Okay, apologies. Yeah, no, thanks for that. The process to get has been really exciting actually, and I was really honoured to be part of the hackathon plus workshop. So we've had a lot of fun along the way, which has been a great part of building these values, but really the hard work does start now in terms of infusing our values into every aspect of the organization, which is what I'm going to talk to a little bit now. So for us, this process now is about building our cultural sort of architecture with these values as a foundational element for that architecture. So from client engagement on the left-hand side, as you can see, all the way through to recruitment, we aim to reflect our values in every interaction that we deliver. You know, all those behaviours and call-out behaviours are elements of that. So it doesn't just stop there. We extend all of that into our performance management approach by setting those behavioural expectations, and our managers will get training on setting those behavioural expectations as we go through the year to make sure that they're aligned to our values. So you heard Olivia talk to our anti-values, which are unique to Lucid. That's not something, having worked in lots of different organisations, I've seen an awful lot of, and there's something that we're really proud of that is quite unique. But you heard Nigel talk to that as well in terms of these are going to serve as both a guide for our performance management, but also support discussions and encourage reflection on blind spots that enable sort of more targeted development. So it feeds into that element of our people cycle as well. These values help us not just to hire talented individuals, but also ensure we bring people into the business that will continue to build our culture as opposed to detract from it. So we bring our values to play every single day. When we're faced with decisions, we pull out our values like a trusty compass to guide us. And we don't just talk the talk. We want to ensure that our people have the tools to live and embed our values on a daily basis. We've also set up culture awards to recognise and celebrate those who embody these values. So they're all aligned to our values, those awards. And this gives us a chance to shine a spotlight on an individual who live our values and inspire the rest of us. A key principle, I guess, also to consider here is that our performance management approach at Lucid is to encourage regular feedback conversations, as Olivia said, not being a secret squirrel and hiding your true feelings about something, but embedding that in our approach to giving feedback as well, to encourage people to hold themselves and others accountable to live our values. So all of these things are going to be living through every single element of our people sort of interactions, as well as our client interactions as well. So in essence, we're not just stating our values, we're activating, embedding and celebrating them every day to make sure Lucid remains Lucid. So the final piece, which I think probably where everyone wants us to get to before we close out and move into Q&A, is thinking about company values when we're thinking about or considering our next career move. So we spend a lot of time at work, weeks, days, years. So it's worth taking that into account when we're making career decisions to make sure that we're working in an environment where we can thrive and grow and not feel like our personal values are challenged on a daily basis, because it's pretty exhausting. Having been there myself, I can tell you it's pretty exhausting. So it's about understanding and connecting with and really feeling part of company values. As we've talked about, company values act like a guiding principle, a North Star for an organization. So they lay down the law of how culture works. So the way that a company approaches its business and the respect and treatment that it extends to employees is really important when we're making our decisions. So being part of a place that echoes your beliefs and values is like finding your tribe in the professional world. You'll feel understood, you'll feel motivated, and most importantly, you'll feel like you belong. And it's that element of belonging that fuels job satisfaction and makes you hop out of bed, not into bed, that's the other way around, I guess, hop out of bed every morning, ready to sort of tackle your workday. We talk quite a lot at Lucid about having Sunday night dread, and in the last 7 months of joining, I haven't had Sunday night dread, and I think that's it speaks to the fact that my values are aligned to the organisation's values, albeit that they're new. So to make this match, what do we need to do? So you need to take a start by looking in the mirror and trying to help identify your own personal values. There's lots of literature out there about identifying your personal values, but reflecting on what gets you out of bed in the morning, what matters most to you. Is it a thirst for innovation, a drive for social impact, or is it about team spirit, or potentially sustainability as a big focus and leaving a legacy beyond yourself? So for many, this will help to identify your own core values, and that will act as a compass or a guide when deciding your next career move. So then the next stage is trying to find that match. So when we're looking to engage with an organisation, Lucid being one of those potentially, is worth investigating what those values are. Most organisations publish their values, and if not, I think I would encourage you to ask those questions within your interview process. And so what we're looking for really within an interview is to make sure that you're challenging the organization on how they walk the walk, not just talk a good game. So a couple of guiding questions that I might be thinking about here. So, do their actions through the interview process align with the values that they're publishing? If someone says they're human-centric and it takes them weeks or months to get back to you in an interview process, is that really human-centric? Are they considering you through that process? Most importantly, do the values resonate with you? Will these values inspire and motivate you in what you do every day? And will they act as a guide that will help you to do your best work in the future? Because if they do, I can guarantee you'll have a much happier work life, and you'll also act as a platform that fosters your personal growth and sets you up for a fulfilling sort of career path. So in terms of the hiring process, I will finish up in a couple of minutes, I promise. So we've got time for Q&A. How to spot those company values. Look out for how they treat you, what the questions they ask you. Are they interested in you as a person? Do they just, or they're just focusing on your skills, for example? Do they talk about the team, the goals, the achievements, their purpose as an organization? Do they have a values manifesto? These are some good ideas for you to check in on before considering your next career move. Finally, I would encourage you to be bold and be brave, and mostly importantly, be you. Embrace your values. Your values make you unique and they define who you are. And in your career, you shouldn't have to compromise on that. That's not how things work. The right job isn't just what you do, it's also about the value that you bring to the company. And remember that the right company will celebrate and nurture your values to get the best version of you. So that's all I wanted to say in terms of aligning values. I know we've got plenty of time for questions, but thank you very much for the time to speak today. And I'll hand back over to Peter to go through Q&A. Should I kill the slides, Nigel? Peter, sorry.
Please, that'd be great. Thanks. Great. So I always find it fascinating to listen to people talking about these sorts of issues and cultures and values and stuff. I mean, part of the importance of this for a company like yours is the process of going through it, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like you've had quite a bit of fun along the way, and I don't know how long it's taken you to come up with the characters and the alliteration and all the rest of it. But part of the value actually for the people in the business is going through that process. But it must have taken quite a lot of time. And I just wonder, I mean, and I'm just asking a blunt question, I'm hoping for an honest answer. In a busy agency where you're focused on client work, this is quite an investment, isn't it? I mean, let's not underplay that in order to go through the process. How long did it take? I don't think you were very clear on that. Just roughly.
I think it's still. I don't think
it hasn't finished. It hasn't finished. Is what you're saying, isn't it?
It's how long is a piece of string, because we're still very much in the embed phase. The actual the program of work itself was led by James Hackmouth, who's our head of culture, sustainability, and engagement. So he was the one kind of doing all the initial early interviews with people. And they were spread out over various time. And that's when we then went into our groups, into our hacker shop, which, as Nigel said, was an hour a day across a week. And then we had a few short catch-ups following, really, a lot of kind of offline iterations of things. And then Nigel's team were really kind of hard at work doing all the characters, whilst James was also looking at how we kind of iterate that. But I think it is it's an ongoing thing, really. We're still looking at how we embed things further. There's still a lot of ways of things that we need to update with our new values, such as our website and all those types of things. So yes, it did take time, but I think as an organisation, we felt that was time well spent, and it was time that we needed to spend and wanted to spend, really. So yes, everyone enjoyed it, but also kind of was a really value add exercise that kind of, the kind of time dedicated to it was kind of well warranted.
And again, this might not be articulating this brilliantly. And audience members, please throw your questions at us. But Nigel, I'm sort of intrigued from your point of view. I mean, you've made a point about the fact that you were the first company to be brought into Lucid, as it were. And there's 4 of them or something that's been brought in. And part of this exercise has been to bring together cultures and values of different companies and so on. And I just wondered, from your point of view, if you're willing to just sort of share a little bit. I mean, you'd been running Bluedog for a while. I can't remember exactly timescales, but you had your own cultures and values. A couple of points. Firstly, I'm intrigued about the initial process of matching Lucid and Bluedog meeting each other, because there's an element of presumably aligning your understanding of each other's cultures and values. Otherwise, it's not going to work in the first place. but ultimately you've come into a bigger organization, and then you've had to adapt and evolve and so on. You know what I'm getting at, I guess, and just let's hear your story a little bit from the point of view of the guy that came in with this company into the bigger company, and
I think and it's a good question, because I think even coming into an organization and being acquired, it's a bit like a dating game. So it's kind of meet a few people, and I'll be brutally honest, I never planned to join a larger group, but I think we'd met at the time, Dennis and Jan, the original owners, and there was something where it felt like we were aligned in terms of the type of people we were, but dare I say, our values, our culture. And I've seen it since, actually, when we have looked at acquisition, it's just as important as all the things you'd expect around, performance, all the finances, all the numbers, what our clients say about a particular business. But it's just as important when we've looked at what are their values and does their culture align to ours. So although we've been through this exercise and we've agreed on the core four, loosely speaking, our values were quite well aligned as the organisations that have come together. There's quite an entrepreneurial spirit at Lucid. And it felt like the right thing for us to do. I think coming into the organisation for Bluedog, quite a big change. Our cultures were aligned, very similar types of people, similar mindset. I suppose what you experience coming in is maybe slightly different around what are the challenges you face around growth. We experienced pretty impressive growth at Bluedog and at Lucid, and it's managing all of those things and making sure that you're helping the team through that. And I think from my own experience, the things that you do see is the team that you bring in. Sometimes it might not work out for those people. It might be, I wanted to be in a smaller business. I didn't want to do X, Y, and Z in a certain way, let's say, where we've had to adopt certain ways of working to help us deliver because of the volume of work, because of the new capabilities we brought in. But at the same time, we've seen people flourish, be in an environment that I hadn't managed to create for them, which was, line managing teams, being able to skip between disciplines, one day working on creative, or I might want to do some motion or work in technology. So it's kind of brought some amazing opportunities, I'd say, for the team. I think that hopefully that answers some of that question, Peter.
No, it's just interesting listening to you talk, to be honest, to get some little sort of sense of the background and get the insight. And I think I'm right in saying, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said something like 500 of you now in Lucid as a group. And I think I'm right in saying it's UK and US, isn't it, your offices? And so I suppose, again, a couple of questions in there. One is, I'm just sort of intrigued, as a process like this goes on, UK and US, very similar in some ways, very, very different in others, sort of thing. Can you give us a little bit of insight into maybe, I don't know, the story there in terms of aligning those sorts of values? But also, I don't know, and what you can say, but there's a lot of the rest of the world out there, sort of thing. I mean, if you were to be thinking about going elsewhere and setting up offices elsewhere and so on, I just wonder, cultures, values, what's it like UK and US, bringing them together, but also how do you prepare for maybe other parts of the world and other types of cultures and so on? And I guess it's all about evolution, but just talk a little bit about that aspect if you can, sort of thing. And Henry, maybe you're
I can speak to that. Yeah, I can speak to that. No problem, Peter. Yeah, I think part of it was in the design element, which is that we made sure that we included people from all parts of the organization. And the business in the US had a big seat at the table to influence the design of this, and you can see it and feel it through, Gator Brain as one example, or as one of the anti-values. So I think that language resonates. It, being really frank, it is a challenge, and I agree completely that cultural differences have an influence. In my experience, and I guess what we've created here is a set of behaviours which, to an extent, there are some semantics when it comes to language, but they are much easier to communicate to help us to calibrate and provide a compass towards those values. So I think that would be where it would come in. The values are great and they are words on a page to an extent. It's really how we want people to start living and breathing and embedding that in all of our practices, be it people, be it client service interactions, that we want to start to see those behaviors come through. And I think those are somewhat agnostic of culture, or at least it's easier to translate compared to culture. I think in terms of looking beyond, UK, US, I think that would be, to your point, as you said, Peter, we'd have to look to translate those and bring those on board. We, even with a most recent acquisition that we've made, we've not enforced the values onto that acquisition. Instead, we're working in partnership to help understand and take those individuals and that organization on an evolution towards where we can find alignment and connection. So these values are Lucid Group values. As we acquire people, it takes, as you will know, Peter, that takes time to bring people on board and to connect with them, be that a different culture in an organization like Nigel's explained, or be that from a different part of the world where we need to connect the dots slightly differently. So hopefully that answers your question as clearly as it possibly can do.
Yeah. And just out of interest, again, how much do you look at what's happening around you? Is this very much a Lucid thing where Lucid people get together and decide what they want to do? Or how much are you able to look at, I don't know, the MedComms business, let alone the wider business? I mean, I don't know quite what I'm asking here, except a lot of the companies in MedComms talk about values and culture, but I don't know how much you sort of look at each other, compare, contrast, think about that. Is there benchmarking? Is there any way of judging how you fit versus other people? And I suppose ultimately, as an individual maybe wanting to come and join Lucid, how do I make those sorts of comparisons? Or do you not? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think we haven't actively kind of gone on and looked at, okay, all of these different organizations, what are their values? Because that was actually something that was quite what we wanted to do when identifying the values for Lucid, is make sure that they were the values for Lucid, and that we were not kind of creating some cookie cutter values that could align to a bakery down the road, and kind of using those buzzwords that you quite often see within values. We wanted them to be unique to us, to really show the humorous side of Lucid, which is why we've got all the characters, and kind of. So no, we haven't done and gone, okay, actually this one aligns to this organization. No, because what was important to us was actually, what do we want to be recognized for, and how do we want to come together as a group of people?
Okay.
I think the other the only addition I'd make to that, sorry, Peter, was my understanding of MedComms is that people move between agencies, and so we had a lot of individual involved in those decisions in the design discussions, and I remember people bringing examples from their other organizations and agencies into the conversation. So, it's probably not a clear benchmarking exercise, but it's certainly a helpful indication of, this being this speaking to the world of MedComms as much as anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But I think there maybe is an interesting discussion there. Let's not go down there. What are the cultures and values, what are the values of MedComms as a business? Individual businesses have their own, individual teams have their own. Maybe there should be some discussion around what are the values of MedComms. I don't know. Let's leave that one to one side. You had several questions coming in about sustainability, and someone sort of saying you didn't talk much about sustainability as a thing, as it were. Lots of people talk about it. Lots of people coming into the business are interested in the position of the company and the business sustainability and all that takes on. So you can see the questions have come in about it. Do you want to talk a little bit to the sustainability question?
Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. So it's embedded within our values when we think about being compassionately human and being about accountable allies. It's something that's really important to us as an organisation. As I mentioned, we've got James as our head of culture sustainability engagement. We've also got someone within the role of an office and sustainability manager. One of the things that we have recently been really proud of is joining the UN Global Compact network, and kind of writing to them and joining up there and looking at the commitments that we will make as part of that letter to the UN there, and really kind of sharing with them what as an organisation we're going to do to make sure that we're sustainable.
I'm going to interrupt because I've got no idea what you're talking about. So just give us a few headlines.
So the UN Global Compact is basically the world's largest sustainability initiative, and it really invites companies to align their culture which we're obviously talking about today, their strategies, with principles on kind of human rights, labour, environmental, all things sustainability, really. So we've kind of joined up and shared what our commitments are, and obviously it's going to take time to do those. So some of the things that we've been currently already getting underway is things like office screening, and really looking at our carbon emissions. And we've been working with an external organisation to help us with that too. Some of those carbon emission calculations are quite involved. So there's definitely an area of real focus for us. And it's also something that we're talking to our clients a lot about as well.
And again, there's lots of initiatives out there, aren't there? And I'm not familiar with the detail of a lot of them, but B Corporation has been mentioned in the comments, and that's one that gets talked about a lot, or it seems to be getting talked about more and more in MedComms sort of thing. You're not part of the B Corp movement, as it were, are you? I don't think.
So elements of our organisation are, as the individual's quite rightly called out, that I think we're looking to, as Olivia, we're looking to align our commitments, but also we're looking to benchmark where we're at to give us an indication. We're looking at a submission for EcoVadis at a group level. We've done it in parts of our US business, so it is a big focus for us right now, alongside this cultural element, and it does feed into all of our values and how we want to behave. And there are lots of very committed, very passionate individuals in Lucid Group who are keen to get on board with it. B Corp is one of the areas that's being explored for sure.
Okay.
We'll have to get them along to talk about it another webinar.
I think you have to invite us back to another session, Peter. We'll talk about that.
No, that's fine. Again, it intrigues me because a lot of this talk about values and so on, they're fundamentally good values that everyone's got, sort of thing. And then it's how do you make it happen within a company in your own language, and whether or not you want to become part of more formalized programs or whatever. I mean, I guess in the end it's different companies have different approaches and so on, but sometimes it gets a little bit confusing about somebody's in this organization, this program versus that program, and one's better than the other or whatever, but actually it's all just fundamentally about us doing good work professionally and being decent, isn't it? I mean, that's sort of what it comes down to. Well, to come back just briefly in the final minute or two, I'm just come back to the basic question. If I'm somebody who wants to come into MedComms and I'm wanting to understand culture and values, just how explicit is it to me? I mean, you're talking about it being a work in progress, you're getting information on the website and so on. But if I apply to you, do you expect me just to sort of like have already done that research and understand all that sort of thing from wherever I can find it? Or do I get presented with, I don't know, a document from you that says, this is us, these are our values, think about it, sort of thing? I'm being a bit simplistic, but how does it work?
Yeah, so we're still embedding it within the recruitment process, but yeah, we've shared everything on LinkedIn. We're aligning our interview questions to the new values. So say, for example, courageously curious, we might have an interview question around kind of, tell me when you've had a time where you've thought differently or approached a problem in a different way. So we're thinking about how we can embed the values in various different parts of the employee life cycle. But yes, as someone joining the industry or joining the organisation, we direct people to various different resources whilst we're getting things updated. Takes a bit of time to get everything in the right place and all that type of stuff, but right now we direct people.
And if I'm sitting in an interview and on the panel, you're sort of doing this to each other or something, then I sort of...
We hope they don't alienate people. No, it's a good reminder for us, though, Peter. We'll put that into our guidance for interview training for our managers.
No hand gestures.
Okay. And just, so I'd written down early on, but I'm going to use this as my final question. I mean, how at the end of the day, I know we keep saying it's a work in progress. This is all sort of quite new, really. So it's rolling out, but over the coming year or 2 or 5. I mean, just give us a feel for how are you going to monitor this or measure this or judge whether it's working, or what sort of criteria can you apply to this? Can you answer that in a few simple points?
I can add a couple of ideas, but I might write that down as an idea for you to take away, Peter, and make sure that I'm delivering it. I think one of the elements that we're doing is we're looking at we have revamped our performance management approach this year, and one of the elements we're looking at is how we evaluate performance alongside and aligned to our values. And so we will look to see at the end of the year, which is when we do our sort of final ratings, as it were, we'll look to see how people are doing against those values by looking at the evaluation approach that people have taken through our calibration exercise. So that's one element, I think, as a data point. Also, our engagement survey that we do sort of tend to do quarterly. That's being aligned to our values, and will include questionnaires and questions about our values and how they're being lived across the organisation. So we'll be able to see from all of our employees, how they feel about them, how embedded they are. But I think for this year, it's very much just about driving awareness, understanding, clarifying, expectations for people, and then beyond that, we'll look to evaluate how they're embedded across the organisation.
At the risk of opening up a bit of a can of worms, do you go out to the clients, or would you see yourself going out to clients and asking those sorts of questions? Do we actually live our values and things like that? You'd basically go.
Yeah. I think there was a question actually posed in the chat around how interested are our clients, and they are definitely interested to know that our values align. And I think even before we had these ready to talk to, we'd agreed on the values, but even before we were talking to our teams and rolling things out internally, we were already talking to clients around these values. And we've seen some quite nice traction actually when we talk. I think somebody said particularly about new business, and it is a question that clients seem to ask of us now, along with sustainability, as part of contracting, all those sort of things. Yeah. But yeah, our clients definitely seem interested in our values, our culture.
And it's chicken and egg, isn't it? But I mean, more and more now, I guess the big pharma companies are coming to you and saying, these are our values and this is our position on sustainability. And this is so, part of your pitch process has to be to show that you align with us, sort of thing. I guess,
exactly.
Again, I'm being a bit simplistic, but that's basically what's happening, isn't it? Okay, right. Look, we probably ought to draw the line there. So in terms of the recording anyway, but I think that was great. So thank you very much. I'm going to draw the line there, but members of the audience, hang on, we've got a few minutes, we can carry on talking, that's not the problem. I know I can talk for you, panelists, and say, anybody watching this today or later, please contact you via LinkedIn is the easy way of doing that. So I hope people will take advantage of that. And we look forward to all this information coming out on the website, guys. And maybe you come back in a year and tell us how you've monitored and measured it, okay? But for now, if anybody's interested in what I'm doing, MedComsNetworking.com. But for now, thank you to the panelists, a little bit of a wave, and we'll say goodbye. Thank you very much. Bye.